Cape Town Minstrel Carnival Association has approached the High Court over the city's decision to reroute the Cape Town Minstrel Parade. The historic cultural celebration dates back to the 19th century. The ANC in the Western Cape has condemned the decision and accuses the city of attempting to commercialize the parade. The new route excludes several key historical streets. And I'm now joined by ANC Western Cape Provincial Convenor, Jerimia Thuynsma. Jerimia, thank you very much for your time. You're calling this an attempt to erase the culture. Talk to us about that.
The Klopse Carnival that happens every year, as you correctly indicated, dates back way to early 1900s, when the then slaves of the Boer Kaap and District 6 basically used the only day that they had as a holiday to basically parade, celebrate with music and so on. And because District 6 and Boer Kaap is on both east and west or north and south of the CBD, the route would always be at the District 6 side. And that has been going on for years. I mean, I can remember my first visit to the carnival was basically 1978, when I was still living in Retreat. And we basically went to town to go and watch the parade, and it always started basically what is now Keisergracht Street, which of course was Hanover Street. And that basically was the parade that people know. You knew when it comes to 2nd of January, you must be in town, you must be there early, because you must see this parade happening basically early, from the early hours of the morning, because there will be a lot of troops marching the whole day down Darling Street, up Wild Street, and basically end up at the foot of Boer Kaap. And that basically has always been the route, and that is part of history to connect the two then slaved areas. Now to then basically try and take it to Somerset Street in Greenpoint, because that for you is closer to where the tourists would be, that the tourists can see this, and then basically want to marshal us into a stadium, is basically trying to rubbish our history, our culture, and that can't be tolerated. We can't just accept that these things happen. We must protect the little culture that we have left, because we have already seen the decimation of the Khoi and the San culture by apartheid and colonialism, and the little that is left of the slave culture will now also being eroded because there's a need to commercialize. We are told we must now go and pay at a stadium to go and see our culture in action. That is just not how it's supposed to be.
Have you tried to engage the city of Cape Town, because other news outlets are quoting it as saying that it was not responsible for the rerouting. In fact, it places the decision squarely on the event organizers.
If you see who is going to court, you will see that one of the event organizers are taking the city to court. They are very clear that the city is basically giving them a route that they are not prepared to take. They want to continue the old age tradition of starting at Keisergracht Street, down Darling Street, Wild Street, and end up at the foot of Boer Kaap, because that is the tradition. What has happened, of course, over years, is that more than one association is now part of organizing activities. And the one organization might have decided to agree to what the city was proposing to them. But as a person from that culture, I am clear that our culture must be respected. What the city must be talking to us about is how do we reduce the different organizations into one, despite the freedom of association clause in the Constitution. How do we maintain the culture as a spectacle that brings thousands of people into the CBD? And instead of basically trying to hurry us into a stadium, that basically is the conversation that must be held. It's not about who wants you to be closer to the stadium, but rather how do we protect the culture, the heritage that has been there for more than 100 years, instead of trying to water it down to make it easier to manage.
Let's talk about the court case now. We know it's been postponed to today, which is Monday. As the ANC in the Western Cape, are you joining that court process, perhaps maybe even as a friend of the court?
We have agreed to support the Cape Town Minstrel Association. We are going to be at the court physically, but we have not agreed yet whether we will become a friend of the court. but will definitely be physically present in the court.
And of course, talk to us then about, the concerns, particularly now that it's been moved from the 2nd to the 3rd.
No, the movement from the 2nd to the 3rd is primarily around religious legends. We know that Fridays in Cape Town, the Malay community, the Muslim community goes to church at 12. And obviously, many of the people in the parades are from that particular persuasion. And it was going to be very disruptive for the parade. It's not the first time that this happens, where the 2nd falls on the Friday and then the date gets moved to the 3rd. So the 3rd is not a problem. It is the route that is the problem. It is not the date. The date is understandable because it's not the first time that happened.
Are there any concerns that this court application may affect the planning and how it's intended to, unfold?
The reason why it is listed on the 3rd, because the 3rd is the date that is being proposed for it to basically happen, and happen, of course, in the route that it normally does. And we hope that by the end of today, the judge basically will give his finding, and then final planning can then basically be done. We are basically talking about the city of Cape Town, the CBD, where it always has been taking place. And I'm sure that the city, because it claims to be the best run city in Cape Town, won't have difficulty coming back to Keisergracht Street, where the march is supposed to have started in any case, so that people can continue to do, despite the fact that it's now advertised to start in Somerset Street.
We know that the city is opposing this application. What happens if it gets its way?
Well, that's a decision that will obviously have to be taken by the carnival associations and how we basically take the issue to the next level. But we don't want to preempt. We think that our case is strong enough, and we are justifying that and simple on history and culture. And that is one of those issues that can't be measured by money. And therefore, whoever basically thinks it's easy just to move to Somerset Street and pretend that there's no cultural heritage that's being affected, have something coming to them. Because today and in court, we will, of course, ventilate all the reasons why we think that our culture is being trampled on. And of course, in that way, the city then has the responsibility to respond to what extent it is now violating the constitutional right of a particular sector of our society to practice their culture.
That was ANC Western Cape Provincial Convener Jerimia Thuynsma talking to us, of course, about that important story.